Hello, it is Megan Becky. Thank you for stopping by. Today I am here to share with you my thoughts on the Imaginarium Book Festival that I attended June 6th and 7th and my book haul that I also got from Imaginarium. So if you don't know what the Imaginarium Book Festival is, it is a smaller book convention that centers around like diverse authors in the fantasy romance, speculative, paranormal, some contemporary, some YA. It's just a very diverse mashup of different authors and different genres. So overall, I really enjoyed my time at Imaginarium. It was a smaller book convention, and I did have 2 days worth of signings. So I had plenty of time to see all the authors, talk to them, things like that. I did ask over on my Instagram if y'all had any questions for me about the Imaginarium Book Festival, and a lot of the questions I got sort of tie into my opinions on the book fest as a whole. So I am just going to go through the questions, and then any other feelings that I have that might not have fallen into the questions, I will then tell you about. So one of the questions I got was, what are some of the pros and cons of a big book con versus a small book con? So for reference, I have only really been to 2 book conventions. My first book convention was last year at ApollyCon, which is a larger book convention. And then this year I went to Imaginarium, which is a smaller book convention. So in my experience, keep in mind the 2 that I've been to, the pros of a smaller book convention are going to be, one, the price, first of all. I paid $120 for the top tier ticket, and I am somebody who isn't willing to pay more than $150 to go to a book convention for any ticket. So that's different for other people. If you have other price priorities and you think it's worth it and all that jazz, you spend your money however you want. But me personally, I'm not willing to spend over $150 for a ticket to a book convention. I'm just not. So this being $120 for the top tier ticket was reasonable for me, and I do think I got my money's worth. Whereas a big book convention, the top tier tickets for those, I know for ApollyCon, it could be anywhere from $350 to $450. And I'm sorry, I'm not paying that. I'm not. The lower end ticket for the Imaginarium was $30, I believe, and the low end for the like bigger book festivals can range anywhere from $70 to $100. So the price is definitely a pro when it comes to smaller book conventions. Another pro is the number of authors are going to be smaller at a book convention, so you're not going to be in such a rush to make sure you see the authors that you are really interested in seeing, maybe your favorite authors or something like that. And if you're in that big of a rush, you might not be able to stop at other unknown to you authors' tables and get to know them. So that was one of the perks of IBF, the Imaginarium Book Festival, was that I went in only having heard of a handful of authors, but I was able to circulate a good 3 or 4 times over 2 days and stop at every single table and talk with every single author and get an idea about what their books were about. So I got introduced to a lot of new to me authors who I had never heard of before. Another pro is interacting with fellow attendees. I feel like when I went to ApollyCon, I wasn't interacting very much with my fellow attendees unless I was in a line with them because everybody was so in a hurry and rushed to get to their priority authors, pick up their pre-orders, that unless I was in a line with them or I was at like a special event with them, I didn't get to engage with my fellow attendees. Whereas with IBF, because I had more time to do it and I had seen all the authors, I really got to talk to fellow attendees and make new friends and hopefully make new friends. Hopefully they liked me. I don't know. But that was definitely a perk of it, and I really hope that I meet up with some of the ladies that I met at this convention at future events because they were all very lovely. Some cons of a smaller book convention is, if it's a smaller convention, typically they're going to have it in a smaller venue, and because of those smaller venues, they might not have a hotel at the venue. Whereas with a larger convention, they're usually going to have it at like a convention center that has a hotel attached to it. So you're going to have to find accommodations away from the venue, and that was the case with IBF. When I went to ApollyCon, even though I stayed off-site of the venue, there was a hotel there that I could have utilized. Whereas with IBF, it was at the University of DC, and so I had to stay offsite, which means you're going to have to think about parking. You're going to have to, transport your book carts and things like that to and from the convention. So that's definitely a small con. With smaller conventions usually comes a smaller venue, like I said, and smaller venues often mean more cramped and tight corners. Now, this one did a pretty good job of separating the authors. They had authors on the first floor, they had vendors on the second floor, and they had more authors on the third floor. But even within those areas, because especially the first day, there were a lot of people in those areas, it could be pretty tight cornered. And another con of smaller book conventions is typically, they won't have super popular authors. So if you're looking for a convention that has those super popular authors, you might want to go to a bigger book convention. Now, IBF, this was their 5th year doing their book convention, and they had some pretty top tier names for authors attending. So that's not always the case. Some smaller book conventions, if they've been around for a while, they might have that establishment to pull in the big names. But I want to say typically you're going to find more authors that are lesser known to you at smaller conventions, which could be a pro and a con. It just depends on what you're looking for. This question, what was my favorite part of attending? I just love attending these with my friend Suleika. We have a great time together. Even though we read similar books, we like different things within those genres. So we both read a lot of fantasy romance, paranormal romance, but she likes totally different tropes than me. So it's fun to go to these conventions and see our different opinions when we're talking to authors. And if I ask an author, do you have this, or is this book this? And they say no, and I'm like, oh, thank God. Suleika knows that she's probably not going to like it, and vice versa. With this one, I really enjoyed, like I said, talking to other attendees. I met some lovely ladies. I met Stephanie and Marquetta and Katrina, and there was a Tiffany, I believe, and a Corinne, I believe. I was trying so hard to remember names of people, okay? And I feel like I did pretty good, but there were some names that slipped me by. But yeah, if I can remember any of these ladies, I will tag them, or I will leave the link to their Instagram if they have one down below. But it was so nice to continuously see them throughout the event and talk with them. This question, what made me decide on this event specifically? So it was an accident, quite honestly. Suleika and I were trying to get tickets again to a Polycon, and we weren't lucky enough to get tickets. So Suleika ended up finding the Imaginarium Book Festival, and it was held in DC. And she said, let's try this. It sounds good. The tickets for the top tier were only $120, so we thought we would give it a whirl. So that's pretty much how we came to the decision of this one, is we thought the price point was reasonable, and it was in an area in which we were already familiar. What did the event do well, in my opinion, and what could they do better? So some things that I thought they did really well is they offered badge mailing. So if you're somebody who has real anxiety, or you don't think you're going to make it to the registration in time, they offered to mail your badges and things to you, which I thought was a really great idea. I did not take advantage of that because it was $25 to $30 for shipping. So I figured I would just pick it up registration. I felt like all of their volunteers were pretty much on the same page, and they weren't ever unsure about something. They always pointed us in the right direction of where we were going. They were all very friendly and asked us if we needed help with anything, or if we asked them questions, they pointed us in the right direction. So I feel like their volunteers were all pretty in the loop and were very kind to the attendees. Another thing I really liked about this book convention is they utilized a virtual queue system, which for a Polycon they did not. They just gave you bracelets with the author's initials on it and a number, and you had to keep track of, you had to pay attention to what they were saying over the audio speakers, and then try and remember whose initial went with what number that you had. And while that system worked and I didn't have any problem with it, I did like the virtual queue that they set up. So they give you a QR code, you scan it, and then you pick one author at a time whose line you want to get in for the queued authors, and it puts you in a virtual queue. So then it will text you when it is your time to get in that line. You could only be in one queue at a time, which I didn't like that setup, because I felt like if I'm 300 and something in this queue and I'm only 89 in this queue, chances are I'll be done with this one before this one. So I didn't like the fact that I could only be in one line at a time. But I did like the setup of that, and it was available where, like, if you went up to that author, even though they were a cute author, if they didn't have anybody standing in their line at that time, you could just go up to them at any point. So while I utilized the queue and I liked the system, there were, I don't think, any times that I got a text message telling me that it was my turn to get in line, because I had already gotten in their line and seen them by the time my number had arrived. Some things I think they could have worked on. When we got to registration, they just handed us our tote bag and told us everything was in it, and we just took it, you know, believing them. And we didn't know that when we went to a certain event, it was the Tomi Adeyemi Lit Talk, that we had to have our badge attached to our lanyard, and we had to have the little ribbon attached to the badge. And so we were like looking through our bag, trying to find each item, trying to assemble it right there at the door, which was a pain in the butt, quite honestly. So I feel like they could have attached all that together before handing it to attendees. Also, my friend Suleika, her badge was not in her bag, so she had to go back to registration and get her badge. And we were just hoping that, you know, they wouldn't give her any problems with that, which they didn't. But that was definitely something that I think they could have done better, is had the requisite items that needed to be together already pieced together for attendees. Another thing they could have done better is let everybody know, or have a volunteer there after you get your registration packet, where everything is on site. Because there were some things that I didn't even see. Like, there were like photo booth setups that I didn't even know exist. So when I was seeing people's like posts on Instagram of them with these cute photo setups, I'm like, where were those? Because nobody told me where those were, and I never noticed them. They were in a separate room that I didn't even know I had access to. Finding the on-site Barnes & Noble, we had to ask a couple attendees where that was. It was easy to find once somebody pointed it out, but the first day there, we were like, where was that? Because we did not see that the first day we were there. We only saw it the second day we were there. So I feel like they could have like signs, bigger signs in the most common areas, like by the elevators or something like that, saying where everything is, because there were just some things that we missed out on because we didn't know they were there. And another thing I think they could do better on is they could take cash for the actual Imaginarium Book Festival table where they were selling their IBF like shirts and keychains and all that stuff. I did buy something there, but I had to give my friend Suleika the money so that she could then charge it to her card, because the first day I only brought cash and I really wanted something, and they were like, we don't take cash for this table. The authors all took cash and card, but the IBF table themselves, they didn't take cash. So I think that's definitely something that they could do better in the future as well, because I don't know about anybody else, but I save up cash for these events so that I'm not tempted to charge to my card. You'll see that didn't pan out so well the second day, but that was the intent. This question, was there anyone that I was disappointed to meet in real life? And sadly, there was. There was an author who I was really interested in meeting because I had read some of their books, and I really, really loved one of their books, and so I was like excited to meet them and tell them about it and stuff like that. I'm not going to say who it was, because I just don't want to put them on blast. And again, my experience with this author could have been totally different from the next person in line for me. The next person in line probably could have thought this author was the sweetest, kindest author they had ever met. For me, I thought the author was very rude. My friend Suleika and I stepped up to the author's table, and I'm going to say she because it's pretty well known that I read mostly female authors, so that's not going to help you narrow it down any. But we were the only ones at her table for a while, and I was telling her, you know, I read this book and I really loved it, and I read this book and I really loved it, but I hadn't read a couple of her other books. So I was like, what is this book about? And she said, that's FAVE. And I'm like, okay, what is this book about? She's like, dragons. And then she had like a set of really pretty foiled books, and I picked it up and I was like, ooh, this is pretty. And she's like, those are only sold as a set. So if you want those, you have to buy all 3 books. And I asked her the price of it. She told me, she's like, you can either buy those 3 books for $80, or you could buy this omnibus for like $60 or something like that. And she was just very snippy, and almost like it was like she didn't go into detail about any of the books. She was just like giving me FAVE, dragons, blah, blah. And it just almost seemed like she was inconvenienced that I was asking her about books that I had no idea what they were about. And so I was asking my friend Suleika, I was like, should I spend the $80 on these 3 books or should I buy it $60? And she said in this tone, at this point, like a couple more people had come up to her table. And she said in this exact tone to me, she said, could you step aside and make up your mind so I could help people who might actually want to buy my books? That exact tone, I'm not kidding you. And I just put the books down and I walked away and I looked to my friend Suleika who said, wow, that was kind of bitchy. And I was like, yeah, now I don't want to give her any of my money and I don't want to buy any of her books. So I didn't. My friend Suleika, before I even got to the table, she had taken a picture with the author and she said like the author took a picture with her, but she didn't like say like, thank you, thanks for stopping by, it was nice to meet you, have a good, she took a picture with her and then she turned around and just started talking to her assistant. And so she didn't have a very good experience with her either. And this was an author who I had convinced her to buy a book from because I loved her book so much. So that was just a disappointment for me, that an author who I really loved their book wasn't very kind and wasn't very nice and kind of rude, quite honestly. And like I said, other people might have had the best time with this author. I don't know. Maybe she was just in a mood at the time I was there. I don't know. But I feel like if somebody's trying to decide whether to give you $80 or $60, maybe be a little nicer to them. There was another author there who I hadn't read any of her books, but I was talking to my friend Suleika and I was standing close to her table and I said, oh my gosh, I've heard of that author. And the author goes, oh my God, you've heard of me? No way. Sort of in like a, oh my God, little old you have heard of me? And I didn't buy anything from her either because I was like, well, okay then. I actually responded to that kind of snarky comment. I said, yeah, it is quite an honor because I haven't heard of a lot of these authors. So for me to know your name, that's pretty great in my opinion. And then I just walked away and I never returned to her table. And those 2 authors, I didn't stop at their table ever again. And I stopped at every single other author's table at least 3 times because we had 2 days to do it. And we were just wandering around. We would come back to authors. We would talk with them. They would see what they had left and things like that. And everybody else was really, really nice. Those were the only 2 like author interactions that were really disappointing for me. And this next question is the complete opposite of the last question. What was the kindest author interaction that I had? So the kindest author interactions I had was Ashleigh Bello, who was an author I had never heard about. I'd never read any of her books. I saw a picture that the book convention had shared to their Instagram, I think, and it had a mermaid on it. And I was like, ooh, that's really pretty. So I got the free sample on Kindle and I read it and I really liked it. So I knew that I wanted to learn more about her books, but before that I hadn't ever read anything by her. But we went up to her table and she was so welcoming, so bubbly, so personable. She took the time and we were like, what's this one about? What's this one about? And she took the time to tell us in detail what her books were about, how they were connected to her other series that she had. She explained like the map that she had. Meanwhile, there were like 4 people lined up behind me and she was just not rushing us, didn't say anything to hurry us along or anything like that. And lo and behold, because she was so nice, I knew I wanted to buy a book from her. But Suleika had no intention of buying a book from her. Suleika ended up buying a book from her just because she was so freaking nice and so welcoming and just encouraging. So that was like an antithesis to the author before, who was like kind of irritated that we were asking about her books. And she had like 2 people behind us who had just walked up and was like trying to rush us. So that was extremely nice. I loved that interaction. We actually stopped by her table quite a couple other times, and every time she was just like welcoming and how's your day going and are you enjoying the convention and things like that. So that's just a testament to if you're nice to people who don't know what your books are about, you might sell more. I also really enjoyed meeting N.D. Jones. She is an author who I've read several of her books and absolutely loved them. And so I got samples of some books that I hadn't read by her and knew that I wanted to pick one up, and she was just so delightful, so warm and cheery, and she was like, can I take a picture of you with my book? And when I wanted a picture, she was like, of course, of course. She gave me a hug. It was so freaking sweet. I actually stopped by her table the second day as well and bought another book. And I would just love to see her at more conventions, because I feel like more people need to give her books a shot, because she writes such great stories that are super unique. And then another author who was just a delight to see again, we met her at a Polycon, was Natalia Hernandez. And she actually remembered Suleika from meeting her at a Polycon like a year later. And when we showed back up, you know, she's like, oh my gosh, hi guys. It was great to see you last night in the hotel. And how are you enjoying the convention? She took pictures with us, and, you know, we were like, oh, we hope your books sell. Her books completely sold out. Even before the end of day 2, her books had completely sold out. She is just such a nice person, and she really, like, interacts with people, and it was just so great to meet her again and see her. So those were some really standout author interactions that I had. This question, what was the prettiest book you saw at the signing? This omnibus bind-up of like 3 books by Annie Anderson that I am always getting fed an ad for in my Instagram feed. If I can find it, I will put it right here so you can see it. And it catches my eye all the time because it's called The Wrong Witch, and it is just foiled. It's got sprayed edges. It's got full color character art in it and things like that. And I was so tempted, so tempted to buy this thing, but I was like, nah, she a thick boy, and she's a little bit more pricey, but it was so beautiful. And anytime, like, I approached her table at least 3 times, and every time I, like, looked at that book and I pondered it, but I didn't. I had self-restraint. I got this question, how much over budget were you? So I had a budget of $340 cash that I knew I wanted to spend, and I was allowing myself to spend on books. My intent was to only spend $340 of that cash that I had saved for it. I did buy some purchases the second day that I did have to charge to my card because I ran out of cash. And when I totaled up what that equaled to, it came up to $112. So I went $112 over budget on the books than I intended to, which isn't great, but it also isn't the worst, okay? I did spend less money on books at this book convention than I did at a Polycon, believe it or not. I believe at a Polycon, I spent, including pre-orders, $700 and something, okay? At this book convention, I only spent like $400. So I spent less, but I did go over my allotted budget that I had for myself. But speaking of the total cost of this wasn't a question or anything, but I do like to put it out there because I think this is something that a lot of people don't share about book conventions. They share like, oh, the pictures and the videos and the hauls, and people get FOMO about it, but people don't share with you just how expensive these book conventions can be. And so I want to share that with you guys so that if you're having FOMO, you can realize how much it's going to cost you to attend one of these book conventions, okay? So I'm going to give you a price breakdown of everything that I spent for the 4 days that I was there. I got into DC on the afternoon of June 4th, and I was there till the morning of June 8th. Because even though I spent money outside of the convention, it was still money that I spent to go to this convention, you know? It's money that, had I not gone to this convention, I wouldn't have spent. And if you go to a convention or something, your price range is going to be different because you might be there for fewer days. You might have a different price ticket. You might not do anything but go to the convention. So it could cost you less. It could cost you more. It just depends. But here is the entire price breakdown of what it costs for me to go to this book convention. So first off, the ticket, as I said, Suleika and I both got the Celestial VIP ticket, and for the price of it, it was $120, but by the time you add tax and fees and all that, it came up to $127. And that was the highest tiered ticket. So if you got a lower ticket, you will spend less money, but $127. Next, we had to find a hotel, and we wanted a hotel that was within walking distance of the venue. We also wanted to find the cheapest hotel within walking distance of the venue. And we found a Days Inn, and it was literally the cheapest one we could find. And the total for that was $666 exactly, which was kind of weird, like $666. Is that an omen? But because it was split between me and Suleika, we each paid $333. So if you were able to get a group of friends to offset the cost of that, I highly recommend doing that so you don't have to pay the full amount by yourself. I then had to get a train ticket, and my train ticket round trip from New Jersey to DC was $72. And as well as thinking about transportation, I had to figure out how am I going to get from the train station to my hotel. And I am somebody who wants door-to-door service when going from point A to point B with luggage, so I opted for a Lyft. My friend Suleika had never used Lyft, so I gave her my code, and so I was able to get a discount on that. So the 2 Lyfts that I took to my hotel and back to the train station cost me $32. And while we were there, we also wanted to go and do other stuff on that Thursday before the event happened. We wanted to just spend some time. So we utilized the Metro and we went and did other things. So that cost came out to $14.55, and we took the Metro at least 6 times, I think. 4 or 6 times, I can't remember. But it was significantly cheaper than getting a Lyft to go to other places. So if you're ever in DC and you need to go to other places, I suggest utilizing the Metro over Uber or Lyft or something like that. It was really easy to use. Suleika had only ever used it once. It was my first time using it, and it was really easy to navigate. We were quite surprised with how clean the stations were, because the ones in New York where I go, they're kind of dingy and stinky. I was like, holy crap, these are nice. Other people in other countries might look at those and be like, oh, geez, these are awful. But when you're comparing New York to DC stations, DC was nice. It was quiet. There weren't like any weird, sketchy people who you thought were like gonna mug you or something. It was nice, okay? So $14.55. That's all it cost us to use it like 4 or 6 times. And we went far too. We went all the way to Alexandria, which was like an hour train ride away. So, and we used the Dash bus in Alexandria, which was free. So that was nice. Then you have to think about feeding yourself while you're at these events, okay? And depending on how long you're there, that's gonna limit or raise how much you spend on these things. So for breakfast, for the 4 days that I was there, I only spent $11.25 on breakfast. Lunch-wise, I spent a total of $23 across the 4 days that we were there, which wasn't bad at all. We hardly ever ate lunch because, again, we had brought snacks from home with us, so there were only a couple times that we actually ate lunch. Dinner was the most expensive thing because we ate dinner every single night except for the night of the 7th. So I spent a total of $106.49. And lastly, we come to the books. Okay, the books. As I mentioned, I saved up $340 to spend cash-wise. I also charged my card a couple times. So my total that I spent on books at the Imaginarium Book Fest was $452.22. My overall total cost to attend the Imaginarium Book Fest was $1,171.51. I thought that this would be cheaper than a Polycon because a Polycon only cost me a little over $1,000. It was like $1,080 or something like that. I did spend less money on books, but because I had fewer people to offset the cost with, we were in DC for 2 whole days longer than what we were in a Polycon. That price went up significantly. But I think when I figured out the total, it came out to about $100 more that I spent at IBF than I had at a Polycon. But just like I mentioned in my Polycon recap video, I do still maintain the belief that if you want to attend a book convention, you need to budget for at least $1,000. I still maintain that because it's not just the ticket that you're purchasing. You're also purchasing hotels if you don't live in the area, transportation if you don't live in the area, feeding yourself. You have to factor in all those other costs as well. I have never heard anybody share that information with anybody. And that's not to be like, oh, look at me, I have $1,000 to piss away on a book event, you know. I want to share that with you to be real and honest with you because nobody informed me that it was going to be that expensive to attend a bookish event. I just thought, oh, I'm going to buy the ticket and I'm going to spend money on books and a hotel. I didn't factor in all the other costs that would be included with it. So that's me doing my civic duty. Thank you for attending my TED Talk. I got the question of, will you go back next year? And to be honest, probably not. And that's not because I didn't enjoy the event. I highly recommend the event, especially if you're somebody who has a little bit of anxiety about attending like a really big event. I think IBF is a really good place to get your feet wet into what a book convention is about. There were a couple girls that I met who it was their first book convention, and they were overwhelmed even with that. Also because just the diversity of the authors was really great. Even though it wasn't a big lineup of authors, it was a very diverse group of authors. And that's something that I think a Polycon isn't great for. I definitely recommend it, but Suleika and I want to try other bookish conventions and see what they have to author. And if you came here for the book haul, congratulations, we are on to that. This question, were there any new to you authors you bought books from? Absolutely. That made up the majority of the books that I bought were from authors who I've never read from and never heard from before. So let's get into this book haul so I can share with you all the books that I got from Imaginarium Book Fest. Let me share with you the things that I got in my swag bag that I actually kept. One of them being this Imaginarium Book Festival fan, which came in really handy. It was kind of hot in there. So it was really cool to get that. I will definitely keep that, and if I go to conventions in the future, I will definitely carry that around. Another thing that we got in our swag bag for being Celestial VIPs were t-shirts. You could choose which one. They had a good versus evil theme. So the evil t-shirt had a crow on it in a different position, and it was black. And then this is the good t-shirt. Suleika got the team evil and I got the team good because I do root for the good guys. So that was part of the price of the ticket, which was really cool. We got, like I said, our badge, our lanyard that says "You Are Magic." So this doesn't even say Imaginarium on it. So if I need a lanyard for another book convention, I will definitely use this if need be. And then we got like the Tomi Adeyemi ribbon that we needed for our lit talk. And then I did not know this was such a thing, okay? I had seen people get these at other conventions, like in pictures, and I was always like, what are those? These are just ribbons that people get. I thought they were for different things. No, people just get them. This is a girl who I met, an attendee. This was an author. This came from an author. This was an attendee, and this was another author. So Suleika and I were trying to make a game of it to see who could get the most ribbons. We both ended up getting 6 ribbons, but those were things that I got in the bag that I got. I also got a tote bag, but I ended up giving it to an attendee who was there for days, so she didn't get one because I don't need more tote bags. So it was cute, but I didn't need to keep it. Some other non-bookish items that I got. This came from an attendee. It was a tradable. It just says Imaginarium. I hardly ever keep bookmarks because I don't use them, but this one was so cute and it's laminated that I kept it. If I can find out who did this, I will link their Instagram down below. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I do think I follow her. I also got this little pouch. I cannot remember who gave this to me, sadly, but this was a hella nice tradable. Some people went above and beyond. I did not. I just made lame little stickers. Oh, this is part of our swag bag as well. It is a crystal keychain, which is really cute. This was a free item at an author table, just a little mini sword. This was a tradable. I have no idea. I can't remember who gave it to me, but it's a magnet. Super cute. Right there. Might as well just stick it right there. This also came in our swag bag. It is a Tomi Adeyemi metal bookmark with a tassel. I got some bracelets from some attendees as tradables as well. I didn't get a book signed by Thea Guanzin because I had just read Tusk Love and she wasn't selling any books there. She was only doing signings, so I just got a book plate with her name on it so I can put it in Tusk Love when I buy it. And then I got this dragon notebook that the Imaginarium table was selling. This is only $10 and she hefty. She hefty. Like, I don't know if this is 3D printed or what, but it's like, it's solid. It's hefty. And I thought that this would be really cool to use at like further signing events to get like authors to sign. So that was really pretty. And when she told me it was only $10, I was like, are you kidding? $10 for that? Gimme, gimme, gimme. Suleika actually ended up buying one with a blue eye and one with a green eye because they had one with blue and green. So that was really freaking cool for $10. Okay, now onto the books. I swear to God, I will get onto the books, okay? So I didn't buy these, but I did take them to get signed. I took my entire Dark Magi series by Kel Carpenter to get signed. So she did sign each and every one of these. She was really nice. She did have the omnibus there. She personalized them. Of this series, but my gosh, they were thick, they were heavy, and I was like, oh my God, I'd get carpal tunnel holding those things. So I'm just going to stick with my paperbacks of this. I love this series, and I will always convince people to try and read this series, because it's a great dark fantasy, slow burn, 2 morally gray characters, it gets dark, I loved it. So first up, I got Forever by Jenny Hickman. I actually purchased this on day 2. I had no intention of buying anything, but we stopped at her table and she was talking about her books. She said this is like FAVE meets Bridgerton. I was like, girl, just take my money, just take it. She signed it to Becky and it's got this really pretty artwork in it. This is about a Seelie Fae princess who needs to find a husband, but she doesn't want any of the other Seelie men, so she ends up falling for the Unseelie prince. So that just sounded like something I would enjoy. So hopefully that one's good. This is Wrath of the Winter Witch by D.L. Howard. I had never heard of this author, never read it, but walking around, I spotted witch on a book cover. And I was like, I want to know more about this. I just know witch and wars, and that was good enough for me. I'm always looking for more witchy books that my Black Hat Book Coven could potentially read in the future. So she personalized it to me, and hopefully I enjoy it. This is an author who I had no intention of buying anything from. I had never heard of her, but I had stopped at this one author's table at like 3:30, right before they were about to shut down, and I was like, do you have any Friends to Lovers books? And she was like, no. But the author next to her, she was like, I heard you liked Friends to Lovers, come here. She's like, this is my Friends to Lovers book, The Heir's Bargain by Neena Laskowski. And I was like, okay. Yes, sold me on it. Yes, sold me. Yeah, she has to convince her best friend to be in a relationship with her, and it's fantasy romance. She signed it to Becky, and she included some art prints of the characters as well. So hopefully I enjoy that, and if there's one way to get me to buy a book, it's to tell me it's Friends to Lovers. So this is an author who I did plan on buying this book from. I read the free sample and I thought it sounded interesting, and that is The Gin Daughter by Renaya Hanna. She signed it, Chakron Becky, gave me a bookmark, and hopefully I like this book as well. This is an author who I had no intention of buying anything from either. I'd never heard of her, didn't look up a sample or anything, but it is called Unbound by Brittany Gosson. This is a dragon fantasy romance. That's literally all I remember about it, but it sounded interesting. She said, Becky, dragons do it better. Got some cool formatting in it. She included a bookmark that says Dragons Do It Better and an art print of like the main character found family group. Then I stopped at this author, another one, never heard of, never read any of the books, but I was like, do you have any witchy books? Because she was talking to Suleika about like her fae books. I'm like, are any of them witchy? She's like, yep, this one. So I got it. It is One Hollow Love by M.K. Ahern. Literally all I know is it's a witch. She just signed it. So hopefully I like it. There's a cool map when I read it. And there is the main female character. I had to think if I wanted to purchase these because I saw them there the first day and I was like, those covers are really pretty. Then I was like, no, Becky, no. But then the second day I had cash left and I was like, yeah, I think I want to get those. So I got 2 books by Tasanya Odette. I got Heart of the Raven Prince. Look at this cover. It's so cute. Then it's got character art inside. He's not a dark-haired boy. Oh my gosh. So nice. That's what I was doing. I was going around, and anytime I spotted like character art or something with like a blonde, I was like, oh my gosh, tell me about that book. It's got like watermark art on the title pages. Look at the back, stunning. So yeah, I don't really know anything about it other than I liked the cover. And same with this one, Kiss of the Selkie. I know this one has a Selkie. That's it, you guys. That's all I know. Very beautiful covers. Once again, he is a dark-haired boy, but I liked the Selkie. So she had 2 more books there. One had a snake on the cover and one had a bear on the cover, but those were the 2 that appealed to me most. And her husband or her assistant or whoever was helping her, he was like, you don't have to read them in order. They are fine as standalones. So I got those 2. Then from N.D. Jones, I picked up Harriet's Escape, which is like a Harriet Tubman reimagined story. I read the sample. I thought it was really cool, so I'm hoping that I really enjoy this story. Look at this beautiful cover. It's the same on the naked hardcover. And then she had this one that I didn't know, and she was telling me about it. It was called Fairy Tale Fatale Barely Gold. She was telling me that this is sort of like a, what is it? A Goldilocks and the Three Bears, like really loose imagining. It's got like a bunch of different magical creatures and shifters in it, and an older character. So I thought I would give it a try. It was either between this one or buying an entire series of her Of Death and Destiny series, which I read all 3, really loved. It's like a paranormal witch romance where she falls in love with her werecat shifter familiar, and it's got like African and Egyptian mythology in it. It was so good. I loved it, but I was like, let me buy a book I haven't already read because I have the ebooks of that. And this has like watermark designs on every page of the book, which I thought was cool. So hopefully I like this one as well. From Kel Carpenter, in our swag bag, we got a little sampler of Before the Winter King by Aurelia Jane and Kel Carpenter. So maybe I will give that a shot and see if it appeals to me. Then we get to the Ashleigh Bello book, which is Mermaid's Kiss. Look how pretty that is. But look at these stunning sprayed edges, okay? Hello? Little mermaid spines that glitter. Gorgeous. She a thick one though. I think it's like over 600 pages. But she was telling us all about it, and these are like vampire sirens, and she falls in love with a man, a human. She doesn't know why she's so drawn to him, and it sounded so good. It's got some like chapter headers. She signed it, Becky, Enjoy the Dark Side. It's got a cool map. And then she gave me some character art. So there's the love interest. There's the mermaid. And then she gave me this bookmark, which is super cute. So that was the book that I spent the most money on. This was $45. So hopefully I love it. Then also in our swag bag, we got a free book. It was Spells and Slip-Ups by Annie Anderson, which was a witchy book. And I was so happy. I was like, yay, another witchy book I can add to the pile. So she said, Becky, magic is real. It's got some cool formatting to it. All I know about this is witch and shifters. That's it. But Annie Anderson, I did not realize that I got 3 books from her. Okay, I got them at 3 separate times. The first day I went there, of all of her books, I picked up Woman of Blood and Bone because this is also witchy. Look at that foiling. It's got solid sprayed edges. Look, April, it's got a ribbon bookmark. Oh my gosh, every time I see a ribbon bookmark, I think of you. It's got end paper art. Do I know what this book is about other than it's witchy? No, I don't. She was saying something about it, but I've forgotten. This is Becky, Max Loves You, whoever Max is. Don't know. Guess I'll find out when I read it. It's got some full color art to it. So, and then with that, she gave me a bookmark, and she gave me stickers of, I'm assuming, the characters. Don't ask me. I don't know what this book is about. She said witches and I bought it. And then I didn't think I was going to get any other books from her, but the second day we went back because Suleika needed a picture with her. And I was just standing there. I was just waiting to take Suleika's picture, and she was talking to the people in front of us, and she was telling them what her books were about. And she mentioned a Kelpie. She's like, the female main character in this book is a Kelpie. So when I got up there to my turn, I was like, hold up, rewind it back. Why didn't you tell me about this Kelpie yesterday when I was here? So I got Shadow Me by Annie Anderson, which has a female main character that's a freaking Kelpie. Do I know anything besides that? No, I don't. There's the naked hardcover, and then there's the Kelpie. So that's literally all it took for me to buy this book was I heard Kelpie. And I like Kelpies, and I think more characters in books need to be Kelpies, quite honestly, because they're awesome creatures. So I got that, and then she threw in another Annie Anderson bookmark. So Annie Anderson got my money. She did. And then this author I met on day one, and she was telling me about her books, and I think it was her husband, her brother, her assistant. I don't know what he was, but he was selling her books, okay? He was doing his job. And she was like, they're kind of fairy tale retellings, and this one was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it had just such a cute cover. It is called A Curse of Tooth and Claw by Nicolette Elzie. It's pale blue, and she always matched her covers too. Like, she wore dresses that matched her covers. She looked like a little princess. So they were so cute, and she was just so personable, and her assistant was just so nice as well that I went back on day two and I was like, yeah, I want to buy your book because I really liked my interaction with you. So she signed it, Becky, Breaking Curses and Headboards. Nice. It's got a map in it. And this is like the first in a series, I believe she said. It's got some page overlay looking things. And then one of the things, okay, so I got a bookmark. And then let me see if I can show you these. Okay, oh, this one's not too bad. So I got 2 free art prints with the purchase of a book. So I got this one. Suleika did not buy a book, but Suleika did buy the Not Safe for Work. Let's see if I can. Art prints. She was like, I just want the art print. And I got it free for buying a book. So there we go. Nicolette Elzie. Hopefully I like this book because your artwork is great. This is a book that I never heard of these authors. I just got caught in by this pretty cover. This is To Snatch a Gilded Laurel by Angelica Babineau and Alex Callan. They're writing to it. Look how pretty that is. And then look, they were like, this is our monster romance, sort of like Regency. They said it was very sweet. So I hope I love it. There is the back. It's got a yellow edges, and look, April, a bookmark. They both signed it. Let's see if it's got any fun details to it other than that. I don't think it does. I think they said this also had like a couple short stories in it as well. And then I don't think these are characters from the book, but I got to pick a free fan art as well, so I picked that. Don't ask me why. Maybe they're in the book. I don't know. But that is super cute. I love the foiling, and I love the art style on here too. So hopefully I enjoyed that. We were making our rounds again, and I went up to his table, and he was telling me that he had this book that was like well, I thought it was something. You'll see it in my Imaginarium vlog. I was totally wrong about it. But he was saying that it was like a Narnia meets Santa Claus story and descendants of Saint Nick, and it gets dark and all that, and I was like, that actually sounds pretty cool. But I was like, I don't know if I want to buy it yet. He only had like 4 copies left. I'm like, I'm gonna give it some thought, come back around. So around like 3:45 I come back around. I'm like, all right, let me buy your book. And that is Henderbell by J.D. Netto. So he sold me on this. It actually came with a little snow globe that has this logo in it, but it was so heavy that I had to give it to Suleika because I couldn't fit it in my suitcase or my backpack. So if I end up loving this, I'll just have her send it back to me. And if I don't end up loving this, I'll send this book to her. But yeah, all I know is that it's like Narnia. They go through this hole in a tree or something, and they end up in like this Christmas world. He did do some cool art for it, though. He does the art for his books. So there's a character. There's a character. I thought it was like a gay YA, but I don't think it is. I don't think there has any romance in it. Maybe it does. I don't know. I guess I will see when I read it. All that he drew himself, so. But he was really nice. He was very personable, and that's what I mean. It's like, if you're nice and just interact with people in a nice way, you sell shit. So those were all of the books that I bought at Imaginarium. I don't think I did too bad, quite honestly. I only came home with 17 new books. That's 17 more books I'm going to have to add to my TBR shelf. So did I make liquor progress on my Read or Reap episodes? No, not really, but oh well. I did get a couple other books, but I did not get them at Imaginarium, so those are going to be in a different vlog. But as far as my experience, like I said, I really enjoyed my time at Imaginarium. I really loved getting introduced to some new to me authors. I liked the diversity of the authors there. I liked the layout of the space where they had it separated on first floor, second floor, third floor. The elevators all worked. One thing I could say is they need to crank up their AC in that place or have portable fans stationed somewhere, because it did get a little stuffy in there at times. As far as like their ADA, because that is something that I did use for a Polycon, they do have an ADA system in place at Imaginarium. However, I didn't need to use it because there weren't like any stairs or anything. I had plenty of time to maneuver about and see the authors that I needed to see, so I didn't feel like I needed to utilize their ADA accommodations or anything like that. But when I asked the volunteers about it, they said if at any point you do need assistance or something, just come approach us and we would be happy to help you. So they were all very friendly about it. So with that, I am going to end this Imaginarium Q&A, my thoughts, book haul video. Let me know down in the comments, have you read any of these books? Let me know if you have. If you haven't, did any of the covers appeal to you? Because I did not share synopsis with you at all, because quite frankly, I know nothing about most of these books. So did any of the covers strike you? But if you don't want to comment that, but would like to let me know you made it to the end of this video, could you just leave me a blackbird emoji, because like the symbol for this year's Imaginarium was like a crow. So leave me that. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and until my next video, go out there and go to a book convention. Bye!